Dr. John Snow had been studying cholera for more than 20 years. When he was still trained to become a doctor, John had been sent to the town of Killingworth in northern England to help miners who were dying from a cholera epidemic. He was appalled by the terrible conditions in the mines, and he suspected that they were linked to the disease outbreak. In a letter to his family, he wrote, "The pit is one huge privy, and of course the men always take their victuals with unwashed hands. We now know that cholera is spread when infected fecal matter gets into food or water, but at the time no one understood this." The accepted explanation was that cholera was caused by miasma, a fog of infected air rising from piles of garbage and sewage. John disagreed. How could bad air cause the severe diarrhea he'd seen among the cholera-stricken miners? Since the disease affected the digestive system, he suspected that cholera was caused by something you ingested, something in food or water. At first, John kept his suspicions to himself. After all, he hadn't even finished medical school yet. He knew his ideas would be laughed at, but he didn't forget about them. He waited for an opportunity to prove his theory. By the 1840s, Dr. John Snow had a thriving medical practice as one of the world's first anesthesiologists, a specialist who gives patients medication so they don't feel pain during surgery. Sleeping gases, chloroform and ether, have been discovered that, when inhaled, made people temporarily unconscious. This was a breakthrough for surgeons and patients. Before the discovery of ether, surgeons had to operate on people who were fully awake. It was so terribly painful, sometimes patients would leap off the operating table in the middle of surgery and try to escape. John invented a regulator to deliver a safe, steady flow of gas to patients. He became so famous for his skill that he was asked to give chloroform to Queen Victoria during the births of two of her children. John's growing knowledge about the properties of gases made him even more convinced that miasma couldn't be the cause of cholera. He learned how concentrated the doses of chloroform and ether had to be in order to put patients to sleep even briefly. So it didn't make sense that clouds of bad air could infect people throughout an entire city. And if bad air was really causing cholera, why didn't everyone develop the disease? The theory of miasma seemed full of logical inconsistencies, but he had no way to test his suspicions. Then cholera came back. A new epidemic of the disease was sweeping Europe, and in the spring of 1853, a year before the Broad Street outbreak, the disease hit South London, the part of the city that lay along the south bank of the River Thames. Still, no one understood what caused cholera or how it spread. Theories abounded. Some speculated that the people in the poor neighborhoods along the river were morally susceptible. Defects in their character made them prone to developing cholera. The miasmatists insisted that it was the smell from the neighborhoods in the river that caused the disease. John Snow started wondering where the people along the river got their drinking water. The grand experiment. There was only one way to find out, by asking. So that summer, on his own, in his evenings and on weekends, John Snow went from house to house in South London, knocking on doors, inquiring how many people in each home had gotten sick and how many had died. Then he would follow up with an unexpected question. Do you know which company supplied your water? In the neighborhoods south of the river, most people no longer got their water from public pumps, but had it piped in from the River Thames. There were two private water companies supplying that part of London, Lambeth and Suffolk and Vauxhall. While Lambeth piped in water from a relatively clean part of the river upstream, Suffolk and Vauxhall drew their water downstream from the main sewer lines, which poured the city's waste into the water. Would that difference affect who got sick? John Snow suspected it would. Significantly, there was no predictable pattern to the water supply system. One house might be supplied by Lambeth, while all its nearest water neighbors got water from Suffolk and Vauxhall. If John could show that cholera struck only the homes supplied with dirty water, it would be strong proof that miasma was not the cause. He hoped that his grand experiment would establish once and for all that cholera was spread through contaminated water. Before John could complete his investigations, the Broad Street outbreak began. Could he apply the techniques he had been using in South London, find the source of outbreak, and do it fast enough to halt the epidemic, or to stop it from spreading beyond Soho? He knew he had to try.